cops on the Black parents whose child suffered racism. Put it up for them, ass. The Madeleine School, an Oregon Catholic school's decision to expel a Black child after he was reportedly called a racist slur, set off a wave of backlash from other families who withdrew their children and demanded that school leaders re-enroll the student and change their policies. Isn't that something? Karis Stoudamire-Phillips and her husband, Mike Phillips, recounted how tensions escalated between them and the principal of the school after they learned their 4th grade son was called the N-word by another student. Stoudamire-Phillips told the Oregonian that she and her husband rushed to the school on March 31st after she received a call from the school secretary who said her son had heard the slur while he and other students were returning to class from recess. Stoudamire-Phillips said this wasn't the first time her family encountered racism at the school. She said her older son suffered a similar experience when he was a student there as well. She and her husband were unsatisfied with how Rashad was handled, that incident, and considered transferring their younger son out of the school. But the son wanted to stay. So Stoudamire-Phillips has been volunteering with the school and advocating for stronger racial equity policies ever since. So they met with the principal, all right? And this is Ms. Rashad, Teresa Rashad. But the conversation devolved quickly, according to Ms. Stoudamire-Phillips. Quote, I told the principal, you do understand that I don't have confidence in you based on my previous experiences with you. And she told me, quote, well, if you don't trust me, why have your child at this school? Rashad asked the couple to leave the school, but when they refused, she called the police on them. The Portland Police Bureau stated that they were called to the school due to, quote, parents yelling at employees and refusing to leave, end quote. Quote, you have to understand that a Black man having the cops called on him is a totally different implication. It's a complete abuse of power. A look what I have over you, Mike Phillips said. Quote, you're calling the cops on me and kicking out my son because of what he heard? My family is the victim in this. There is no cross you can hide behind, end quote. Phillips met police outside the school building to show he had nothing to hide. The principal, Ms. Rashad, eventually told responding officers they were free to leave and the situation was under control. So in the days following that, all right, the couple waited for communication from the school about meeting with the offending child's parents and a decision to enforce disciplinary measures. This is normative, this is common. But the school only notified them that students allegedly involved in the incident denied hearing the slur. School officials also implied that perhaps their son misheard what was said. Even claims from a student witness were reportedly diminished by the principal. The family of a child who overheard the slur also met with the principal, who told them she suspected their son had made up the entire incident and recommended he see a therapist to be deprogrammed from the anti-racist training he received during his previous enrollment at a public school in Portland. Stoudamire-Phillips responded with an email slamming the school's response, calling the principal, quote, completely inept, and accusing her of fostering a school culture that allowed, quote, both overt and subtle racism. The next day, the school responded with an email titled Termination of Partnership, notifying the parents that their son would no longer be enrolled at the school. Quote, I have a little kid that's wondering, why doesn't this school love me? Stoudamire-Phillips said. He asked me that in my face with tears in his eyes. Now, before I continue, everything the parents are saying, I believe. Everything the parents are saying, I believe. What principal of a faith-based institution at that, what principal decides to terminate the partnership because the parents are being true advocates for their child? Or they send an email that they may find offensive, however, an offense has taken place. What principal, what leader, what advocate of a faith-based school in particular would do such a thing? Well, one that would foster a culture of both aggressive and subtle racism. That's the one that would do it. Calling the police on the parents for being visibly upset at the way you mishandled an incident of racial bullying. There's more. Wow. So the parish priest who oversees the school, Reverend Ramel, reportedly reached out to the Phillips family, stating he was open to a dialogue. The family is now specifically demanding a public apology from the school, the dismissal of the principal, an independent investigation into the administration's handling of their son's complaint, mandatory anti-racism training for staff, faculty, and families, and the enforcement of clear anti-racist policies, among other demands. Good Reverend, is that enough for you? I mean, come on, Reverend. What would Jesus do? Ironically, you all will call him the N-word too, if the culture is as stated. Several school community members who learned of the child's expulsion joined the couple's crusade. Roughly 50 parents signed a letter, 50 signed a letter to the good Reverend, the parish leader, demanding he reinstate the Phillips son and amend the school's policies. Some even removed their own children from the school or made plans to withdraw them the next school year. The family of another Black student wrote a separate letter demanding the principal's resignation, citing other racist incidents that weren't appropriately addressed, like, quote, students being made fun of for their skin tone and their hair texture and other slurs. And a statement to the school community about recent conflicts that have impacted our caring Catholic community, the good Reverend wrote. The school remains committed to building its community based on love, understanding, and respect for the dignity of all people as modeled by Jesus Christ. This specifically includes providing a safe environment for all staff and students that is free from discrimination, harassment, and bullying. The principal of the private school of Northeast Portland is on leave. The school informed families on Wednesday after a firestorm of public criticism over the decision to call the police to campus during a heated conversation with two Black parents late March. You know, the good Reverend counts the collection plate. And when those families started to withdraw their children, and also noting that they were going to withdraw their children after that year was over, the Reverend started looking at the collection plate and realized that it really don't pay to be racist or to protect it. Good Reverend, you made a fine financial decision. Let's be clear, sir, that's all it was. All right. Yasmin, thoughts here.
Yeah. What's interesting about stories like this is that they're popping up all over the country, right? They're not relegated to traditionally white or traditionally racist or conservative locales. And I would assume it has something to do with the fact that borders between states are less relevant today now that we have social media and things like that. You don't have to live around like-minded people anymore. You can just find like-minded online communities that you get to be a part of these days. So regional ideological distinctions maybe don't exist, at least not as reliably as they used to. I mean, we were just talking about Connecticut in the last story, and I just went up there last December and I saw way more Trump flags than I would have liked or expected to see there. Granted, I was in some more rural areas at the time, but honestly, it felt like I never left the South. And this type of behavior is everywhere. Okay. Oregon has some deeply, deeply red areas. So red that some counties in like the more rural eastern part of the state, they actually want to leave Oregon because it's too liberal and they want to become a part of Idaho, which is much more conservative and Republican. But these things keep popping up because accountability keeps failing, right? Leadership keeps failing. Money is always I think more of a consideration than it should be in a lot of these cases. I would hope that more stories like this exist, but they don't make the headlines or we don't cover it on shows like this one because they were dealt with accordingly and in a timely manner. They just got stamped out from the beginning. I hope that we're only talking about the isolated incidents here, but it's hard to gauge whether or not that's actually the case because we've collectively, I think, lost our sense of reality. We all live in alternative worlds that are digitally informed based not on the real world that we live within with real people and real feelings and real consequences for words and actions, but on the algorithm driven fake worlds that we inhabit online. So I would love for us to all just get back to the real world where we have to learn how to coexist with other people, including people who are different from us. But I don't know if and when we'll ever get back to that.
Yeah, that is the goal. The goal is to embrace, harmonize, respect, and celebrate the differences of us all.